It's the 30th of the month. A couple in a suburb outside a major American city sit down at the kitchen table with 2 laptops open. Between them, a mortgage, 2 car payments, and a childcare invoice that arrives every 2 weeks like a second rent check. They make $250,000 a year combined. That puts them ahead of roughly 95% of American households. Their checking account balance tonight is a 2-digit number. This isn't a story about people who spent recklessly. It's a story about what happens to a paycheck the moment it lands. And why, for a growing share of high earners, there's nothing left of it by the time the next one arrives. For most of the 20th century, 6 figures wasn't just comfortable. It was the definition of financial safety. Clear $100,000 a year, and the assumption was simple. You saved, you invested, you built equity, hit 6 figures, and you'd made it. The data says otherwise. According to PYMNTS Intelligence and Lending Club, 48% of households earning over $100 in a year are living paycheck to paycheck. Push past $250,000, roughly the top 5% of earners nationally, and the number is still 33% to 36%. Lending Club's financial health officer, Anuj Nayar, flagged this back in 2022. $250,000 a year is more than 5 times the national median. That a third of these earners live paycheck to paycheck, he said, should surprise you. He added that these households carry an average FICO score of 758, meaning they're financially responsible by every conventional measure. The pattern hasn't reversed since. So sit with the question. If these are high-income, credit-worthy households, where does the money go? According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the national personal savings rate, what's left of your income after spending, had fallen to 7% by June 2026. In the 1970s, that number averaged over 12%. Start with 2.7%. In the 1960s, households saved 11.2% of disposable income. In the 1970s, 12.2%, the historical peak. By the 1990s, as the stock market took over as the main wealth engine, that dropped to 7.C%. April 2020 briefly spiked it to nearly 32%, driven by lockdowns and stimulus checks. By 2026, that entire cushion was gone. 7% is lower than almost any point in the historical record. Here's the part that actually explains the mystery. PYMNTS and Lending Club split high-income, paycheck-to-paycheck households into 2 groups. The first, 36% of high earners, pay every bill on time and still end the month at exactly 0 net cash. Their money isn't gone. It's locked into home equity and retirement accounts they can't touch without a penalty. The second group, 10% to 12% of high earners, actually struggle to cover basic bills. Within that group, 23% can't cover an unexpected $400 expense without going into debt. 6-figure earners. $400, call it what it actually is. A liquidity problem. The money exists on paper, just not as cash when something breaks. Megan Green of the Financial Health Network gets it why. High earners have more flexibility, but they've also taken on far more debt. Mortgages, car loans, student loans. The assumption that higher income equals better financial health, her research shows, simply isn't true. Here's the math. A $150,000 household nets roughly $8,500 to $9,000 a month after taxes and benefits. In the metros where 6-figure jobs concentrate, New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Boston, median home prices now run 8 to 12 times median income versus a historical 5. A mortgage on an $800. Dues in home eats over 50% of take-home pay before childcare, before student debt. Infant childcare alone runs $1,500 to $2,500 a month per child. And the same degrees that produce 6-figure salaries often carry $80 to $200,000 in student debt, serviced at till $200 to $2,000 a month for a decade. Walk a $200,000 a household through the year. Housing $48,000. Childcare $28,000. Student debt $14,000. Auto $12,000. Healthcare $10,000. Baseline living costs $36,000. Net annual savings 0. Not because of one bad decision, because the math was built that way from the start. Lifestyle creep is real. It's an accelerant. But housing, healthcare, childcare, and education in the U.S. are priced almost entirely onto individual households, with little public subsidy behind any of them. One more mechanism makes it worse. That 758 average FICO score isn't a sign of health. It's what lets the imbalance continue. A prime credit, jumbo mortgages, and high limit credit lines that lower income households can't access at all because tight underwriting caps how much they can borrow. High earners don't hit that ceiling. So when costs outpace the paycheck, the system just hands them more credit. There's no single collapse here. Just a balance sheet quietly eroding behind a household that looks, from the outside, entirely successful. Compare the U.S. internationally. Switzerland saves close to 19% disposable income. France, 18.2%. Germany, up to 24%. The Eurozone average, 15.3%. The United States, 2.7%. The gap isn't that Americans earn less. It's that those countries subsidize healthcare, education, and childcare publicly, removing the exact shocks draining American households. In the U.S., those costs land directly on individual balance sheets, the irony worth carrying forward. The same 758 credit score that signals financial responsibility is the mechanism keeping these households afloat month to month. And at the same time, the thing quietly preventing them from ever building the cushion that would make that credit unnecessary. This is what happens 20 or 30 years from now when the paychecks stop. Vanguard's How America Saves report shows workers earning $150,000 or more have an average 401 NA, balance of $336,470, but a median of just $188,678. Apply the standard rule planners use for how much a retirement account can safely pay out each year, and that median generates about $628 a month. For a household that lived on $12,500 a month, that's not a retirement. That's a cliff. And because so much of what they have is locked in illiquid equity, there's no simple fix waiting at the finish line. This doesn't mean six-figure earners are doing something wrong that lower earners aren't. It means income alone was never the thing that determined security. What's left over after fixed costs is. A household earning $60,000 with low fixed costs can end up more stable than one earning $250. 0-0 carrying a jumbo mortgage and a decade of student debt. The practical takeaway: treat fixed overhead, not gross salary, as the number that determines your flexibility. Watch lifestyle creep at the exact moments it's easiest to ignore, the raise, the bonus, and don't mistake credit access for financial health. A high score means a bank trusts you to repay debt. It says nothing about what happens if the paycheck repaying it stops. That couple at the kitchen table will get paid again in a few days. The number will look fine by the 15th. Then it happens again. Nobody at that table did anything wrong. There's no single decision to point to, which is what makes this harder to fix than a story about a company that collapsed overnight. It was built this way from the start. This script is based on data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, PYMNTS Intelligence and Lending Club, Vanguard's How America Saves, and OECD Household Savings Statistics. Financial conditions change. Verify current figures before making decisions of your own. The savings rate will tick up next year and down again after that. The structure underneath it, the one that makes six figures feel like just enough, hasn't moved in decades.